something out. Everybody say it with me. Dobre večer. Welcome to the cafe. Aloha, everybody. Hi. Thank you for coming out. It's an election day. Chico. Who's that? I have to say that way. But thank you so much, Sabaki. I want to thank you a billion times and say it in as many ways as I can say it. Sexism and Other Stories. Thank you. Welcome, my friends. Thank you all for coming out. I really appreciate it. Trust me, I do. I wanted to start this evening before I read a bunch of stuff about women's issues, because that's what I'm all about, because I'm female and such. I've got this bag, and it's not for holding anything, too personal other than my life savings. Everybody drop in anything you can for our phenomenal feature this evening, Michael Hogue. I'm going to pass it along. Yeah, give it up for Michael Hogue, yeah! I'm going to pass it along. I can't put anything of my own in there, but I swear I'm taking like my life saving. I'm seriously, I'm like, just so you know, every week I'm like, let me see how much I can save to be able to put in. I seriously do that. This is what I do. I'm like, I've got to see what I've got to be able to put in my wallet to be able to give, and that's what I do, because I'm weird or something. But this man is so worth it, and I'm so looking forward to hearing his poems, because I've heard him here as a regularly, but he has also been published in back issues and future issues of CC&D magazine. If anybody gives a crap about being published in CC&D magazine, they could be in cool looking 6x9 published books. If you want to learn about it, come bug me. Otherwise, go to scars.tv on the web, and you would get a web address, and you could say, hey, I know you, this is my stuff, like me, and I'll do something like that. It's pretty straightforward. So I've recently had a few books published, actually, through Scars based on past shows of mine. And one of them is something, the first show I ever did at Swing State in Lake Villa, which was based on a chapbook of mine called Sexism and Other Stories. Because there was a chapbook that was out in the mid-90s called that, and it was all about women's issues and stuff. But there were other things in there as well. So it wasn't only women's issues, but there was a lot of the stuff in it. And the show that I did had a lot of those. So I thank you very much, my man, for next week's feature. Hi. Sorry, I'm being all like gooey. But I wanted to, you're laughing. But I thought I would read one thing from that show, which is actually something that I read at the Palos Park Public Library feature, which Bob Rashko, who's here in the audience, heard. I hope that you're okay with hearing this poem again. This is a longer piece called Scratch the Surface. You don't have to pull out the book for men to know how men degrade the weaker sex, or even assault women with the English language. Hey, they can even try to make it sound like nice by thinking of it as a compliment, or calling us a honey, a fox, a pumpkin, their cougar, or even a hot chick. But if calling us food or animals is too degrading, I can still be your babe, and I'm still your girl. I mean, calling us less than an adult can still be degrading. But I get furious when I'm wearing a tank top, because it's hot outside, and a semi or a truck honks their horn. I mean, do they think honking their horns is a compliment? Or are they busy honking their horns to try to show off their big rig? But I thought the book for men covered all the bases, even with terms that men understood. Banging, hammering, nailing, screwing, scoring. But I was in a car, and because it was warm, I was wearing a tank top. Again, a truck driver's sexual turn-on. And I got honked at by a semi-driver while sitting in a car going down a highway. And that's when I heard of one more term for women. Someone informed me that after their truck horn blares, the truck driver will radio ahead to other cars and tell them the color, make, and model of a car with a good-looking seat cover. Wow, a seat cover. Thanks. Now I'm reduced to good-looking upholstery, something you keep around to sit on. But, well, we can't stay perfect and good-looking and pretty after you kept us down for years before you find something prettier to replace us. So as I sit in this car, covering myself up whenever we're near a truck, I think of the book for men, with jokes objectifying women or reminding us of a bush, a slit, a crack, a box, a hole, or a farm implement, like a hoe. But I'm telling you, baby doll, as thorough as that handbook seems, it doesn't even scratch the surface. You don't know how, and I actually was in the car in a tank top, and I'm like putting up shirts and sweatshirts in cars. I'm like, this isn't fair. I want to be able to just go down a road without thinking that I'm a seat cover. Thank you. You're a good-looking seat giver. I would like to do, and I'm going to intersperse, because of Sexism and Other Stories, I'm going to try to intersperse things about women's issues with things not about women's issues. So I'm going to do this other, this is a funny one. This is called Joe Putz-z-vucki. My mother, when she first found out she had cancer, breast cancer, cervical cancer, I wrote a bunch of poems. And this is a long time ago. And this was one of them. And this is called Joe Putz-z-vucki. My mother told me about one of my father's clients, Ed Kaczynski. He had a stutter, and you couldn't mistake his voice. Well, he called the house one night, and my father was out with the boys, and so my mother decided to play a trick. She told Ed, "My husband is out with Ed Kaczynski, and he won't be home for a while." And Ed stuttered, trying to make an excuse, cover up for my father. He said, well, tell him that Joe Putz-z-vucki called. And he quickly hung up the telephone, thought that my mother didn't know his voice. Later, he told my father he covered up for him. And my father just said, "My wife knows your voice, silly. Everyone can recognize your voice. She was just playing a joke." And by the way, who is Joe Putz-z-vucki? And told my father that Putz-z-vucki was Polish for under the sidewalk. And it was just the first thing that he could possibly come up with out of his mouth, because he couldn't think of anything else. Joe Putz-z-vucki. I'm Joe Putz-z-vucki. Yeah, fun stories about my mom. So thank you, yeah. I am going to do, this is going to suck for everybody, because I've got to figure out a way to make this sound less repetitive and sexist. I would say misogynist, but misogynist means that men hate women, but there's no term in the English language for women hating men. So I don't have a term to be able to say it. It sounds like it's something for women hating men, which there's no word for. With all the words in the English language, and they can come up with words for misogyny, men hating women, but not the other way around. This is repetitive, so I'm going to try to make it a little less repetitive, because it's based on a quote from Bob Lamb from a story that is called Middle Class Husbands and Fathers. And the quote is, "Rapists are not peculiar, abnormal men. Rapists are very normal, masculine men. Rapists come in all sizes and shapes, all races and nationalities, all ages and social classes." I'll try to not repeat all the parts as much, but rapists are not all convicted prisoners. They're not all psychopaths, all welfare recipients. Rapists are not all foaming at the mouth. They're not all abused by their parents. They're not all sex-depraved, all gun-toting criminals. Rapists are not all undereducated or jobless. They're not all beaten as children. They're not all minorities. Rapists are not all criminally insane. Rapists are in your office. Rapists are in your convenience mart. They're in your local tavern, in your school, in your restaurant, in your carpool. Rapists are in your grocery store, in your country club, in your church. Rapists are in your family reunions. They're in your living room. Rapists are in your bedroom. They come in all shapes and sizes. They're everywhere. Nobody wants to applaud for that. I understand that. I totally understand that. But when you are going, I worked as an acquaintance rape workshop facilitator for years, and in college, 1 in 3 women are raped by an acquaintance. So yeah, they come in all shapes and sizes, which is where this kind of stuff would come from. It sounds awful to hear, but in those circumstances, it's probably true, which is terrible.
You mean as opposed to someone they didn't know?
True.
Not 1 out of every 3 women in college
is raped by someone, acquaintance or otherwise.
Oh, really?
Lump them all effing together.
Oh.
Yeah, let's be nice and lump them all together. Because they're not all your friends are acquaintance rapists. Not all of them. Probably only 1 in 4, but there are strangers. No, I have no idea. So it's a stat of all of that together. So I'm going to perk this up, and this one's called Emergency Room Stories. This is Sexism and Other Stories. This is why I'm going to try to find some else. This is Emergency Room Stories. I can't believe I'm doing this one. Oh boy. And we sat in the car trying to waste time and break the long driver's silence. One of us remembered a story about a man who had to go to the emergency room. He was wearing a raincoat and nothing else because he impaled a poodle with his member. Now, that was a new one we said, and we all struggled to think of other sexually perverse emergency room stories we heard. Like men coming in with dead hamsters inside of them. You see, they let them go inside of them when they're alive because the hamster squirming around while they're being asphyxiated seems to do something for some men. But then, of course, the question begs itself, how do you get the carcasses out? Hence the emergency room, I suppose. So we talked about other stories, like women with light bulbs or vegetables stuck in obvious places. And then one of us says they heard of a man that came to the emergency room with a dildo stuck somewhere. And then the punchline is that he claimed to have fallen on it. And then I told one about how a woman who had a raw hot dog stuck inside her, and all I could think was, how horny could this one actually be in order to put something as flaccid as a hot dog inside of her? But then someone said, maybe it was frozen. Yeah, exactly. And then someone else asked, what would it be like putting your tongue on something frozen and having it stuck? So we laughed. Yeah, emergency room stories. So, sorry, give me. I'm probably going to let it go with that. That I should read this poem from the book 40.
Oh, wow.
That is called Only for One Night. So I'm going to do that one really quickly. I had left everything, and I stumbled upon you. I didn't know what I was looking for, but when I came to you, I thought, from here, I've got a nice view, and I thought that was enough. You had the same anger in you as I, and I didn't think anything of it until I was alone and saw that we could be angrily, passionately together, even if it was for only one night.